Now, in this introduction, I'm going to say something about strategy, and I'm going to really make the terms strategy and decision making I'm going to treat them as synonyms. I'm going to refer to them as the interchangeable. And when we're thinking about decisions, really we can think of them in many ways. We can think of them as in terms of whether we've got free will, or whether things are deterministic, or we can think in many ways, or we might be able to think in terms of whether they're made automatically, or they're consciously, and so on. But generally speaking, what we can do is we can divide strategies or decisions into two time frames. We can think of where we are now, so specifying where we are now, and we can think of where we're going. So we can think of where we are now, or we can think of process. Right? And where we are now, let's say, okay, let's call where we are now, let's call it the state at, over a very short interval of time, dt, where t is time, and delta stands for a very short interval. And later I'll make a distinction between a short interval and a long interval. But anyway, we're talking here about where we are now. We're saying something, we're really talking about statics, if you like. Right? And when we're talking about process, we're looking at what happens through time. We're talking about events through time. Okay? So we make a very important distinction between process, which is what happens through time, and the system state, where we are now. So let's move on a bit, and let's think of the divisions into a system state, where an organization is now, and let's think about process. And let's think about it in terms of making decisions, okay? Now, if we look at the system state, this is the environment in which we make decisions. And really one can say, if we're thinking about decisions in an organization, we can think that some aspects of the environment are out of our control. And let's call them outer. Some aspects of some relevant variables are within an organization's control, and let's call that inner. Right? Now, the thing is that what's happening inside an organization, what's happening outside an organization is constantly in flux. So let's talk about outer dynamics, and let's think of this as inner dynamics. And organizations have some kind of goal, and let's call that goal, let's use a game theory term, and let's define these goals in terms of payoffs. And we'll say a little bit more about payoffs in a minute. Okay. And process really is divided into two aspects when we're thinking about decisions or strategies. Process is divided into, if you like, cognitive aspects and if you like, aspects which are to do with implementation or making things happen. And also, we never get things right. The dynamics of the situation are always changing. So what we need to do also is to adapt our decisions. So we've got our original decisions. So we've got three groups of things. Okay, so you know, what we've got, if we think of it strategy in this way, we've got the past, we've got the interval of time where we're making choices or making decisions, and we call that interval dt, the interval of time. Here we've got a time frame, here we've got the future, right? And you know, process is a continuous thing over time. Processes are happening over time. Decisions here are made about the future, but they're conditioned by what happened in the past. And what we often say is that the past, we're dependent on the past, we're dependent on history, and we could talk about a term which we call path dependence. And we can also think about the future, and in the future there's many possible scenarios, many possible things could happen, right? So we've got a distinction between this interval of time, which refers to this group of things, and then we've got this process through time, which is divided into three groups: the cognitive aspects, the implementing aspects, and the adaptive aspects. And it's quite useful to put this into a picture, into some kind of picture, because strategy, I'm not doing a very good service of what we'll do. You've got a better one in the notes. And what you could say is, well, okay, let's divide this circle into two parts, and let's think of this as the cognitive aspect of the process, and let's think of this left-hand side as the action part of the process, and let's think of the transition here between action and cognition, if you like, as a stage of adaptation. And you've got an important break here between the cognitive and the real, if you like. Here, we're thinking about things. Here, what's happening is there's actions in time, right? So, let's look at the cognitive aspects. And one can think of the cognitive aspects as being made up of some kind of vision of what we want to achieve, a set of values, which we have, a set of guiding principles, if you like, and then we've got a set of alternatives to choose from. Then we can think of making choices, And then we can think of implementing those choices. And then we can think of, well, reflecting on how well those choices have worked out. And we'll call that reflection. Or we could call it, if you like, we could use the term, we could use the term control or monitoring. Let's use control. Now, what I've described here is process, and this process takes place within a context. And let's say the context is one, you've got a particular set of outer dynamics, you've got a particular set of inner dynamics, and you've got payoffs. Okay? So what we could do is to join these up with some kind of triangle, and this triangle denotes the system state, and we could start numbering the elements. So we've got 1 for value, 1 for vision, 2 for values, 3 for the inner dynamics, 4 for the alternatives, 5 for the choice bit, 6 for the implementation bit, 6 for the payoffs bit, 7 for implementation, 8 for reflection, and let's start off at the top with number 9. Right? Now, and it's quite useful to look at the cognitive side of things in terms of the vision, the values of an organisation, and the alternatives that the organisation identifies. That's what you're making decisions about. And it's quite useful to just join these up because they're connected. Okay? And then on the other side, we have the action parts of our scenario. So we've got this kind of picture, and actually, constantly we're comparing our vision with what we implemented, and we're reflecting on what happened in the light of our values. So, what we've got here is the green bit, if you like, is the adaptive part of what we're talking about. The red bit is the red triangle, is the red triangle, let's get it right. The red triangle is if you like, the system state. The blue bit here is the cognitive states, and the green bit is stands for the adaptation. Okay. So what we have here is the basis of what I'll call